You're listening to Real Talk Texas with local expert Steve Hakes. Now, here's Steve.
Welcome back to Real Talk Texas. Today in the studio, we're talking about suburban living. A few weeks ago, we had Clay Stapp in of Clay Stapp Group, and he was talking about urban living. And now today, we've got Mike McCoy of Prudential Worldwide out in the mid-cities, northeast Tarrant County area. And he's talking about the suburban lifestyle in that particular area of town. And so, you know, the last segment we were talking about what to do to get ready to sell your house, how to make sure that you get market for your house and bring it up to speed so that you're at par with the other homes in your area, and really reaching out to a real estate professional, and that's where they can help you to make sure that you're pricing it right. Because I think it's like anything else. When you have a car and you love that car or you love that house, you've lived there a long time, you have in your mind what you think it should sell for. A real estate agent can bring in real reality for you, and one of the reasons I always use Mike McCoy and reach out to him for some data is this man's very analytical, and he gives a lot of detail to his clients. And so, you know, we're going to talk about buying. Let's talk a little bit about the whole marketplace there, Mike, in the mid-cities area, northeast Tarrant County. What's going on there as far as the pricing of homes and things like that? I know that, you know, a lot of our realtors will say we've bottomed out as far as the dropping of values. And you know, I think the peak was back in, 2005 was the peak of the pricing?
About that, yeah. It was peak of pricing was right before the .com, remember that. Yeah. And then we had the little, stagnation of the economy there. So peak of pricing, I would say probably is right before the .com bust. I mean, the really highest peak. But over the last, say, 6 years, I would say 2007 was probably our highest point, and we really started to drop until about 2009, where it's kind of stabilized a little bit and then took a real plunge in 2011. But every indicator that I've been looking at is everything is on the upswing right now. And so what took 4 or 5 years previously to drop down to, I think we're going to have 4 or 5 years of good economic basis and growth for our area.
And we've talked before on the show here about some of the people, the analysts are looking at the Metroplex as a whole. Mm-hmm. And part of what you're seeing out there, all this construction of roads and things like that, are really in everybody getting prepared for this boom that we're having and the trending that we're having as far as employment in North Texas. And we, right now I think we're just south of 7 million people in the DFW marketplace. And what I've read is by 2030, we're going to have 12 million people in the marketplace. So there's going to be a strong need for housing. And I think that one of the things we're seeing right now is inventory out there. There's not enough homes for sale. And it's that whole supply-demand curve, right, that we're getting more buyers in the marketplace, less homes to sell, less choices. So maybe the values are starting to come up. How did the mid-cities compare to the rest of the Metroplex?
Mid-cities have been a little bit insulated. They haven't taken the extreme hits such as, downtown Dallas, downtown Fort Worth, North Fort Worth. The mid-cities area, because of their location, because of the proximity to the airport, because of the strength of the executives and the strong businesses that we have in that area, it hasn't taken the ups and downs that we've seen, more drastic in this in the outlying areas, and particularly nothing compared to what we've seen in the nation.
Well, one of the things in the mid-cities I think that also plays into it is that when I first moved here, they told me to move to the Fort Worth side of it because it wasn't as growing, it wasn't as dense, and now it's getting there the same as it is on the other side, the Los Colinas, Irving area. But the other thing I like about the mid-cities is I'm 30 minutes, if you're living in the mid-cities, you're 30 minutes from Fort Worth, mm-hmm. You're 30 minutes from downtown Dallas. So when our people from out of town would come in, we'd take them to Dallas to see the metropolitan lifestyle. We'd take them downtown Fort Worth to let them see the western, go to the stockyards and things like that. So it's a good place to be kind of centered in the Metroplex, and I think that's what kind of keeps it the values there as well.
Yes, it is. It's been very, very stable, particularly over the last 3 years. What I would like to say to your listeners is that if you're thinking about purchasing right now is an excellent time to purchase. I mean, I can't think of over the last 6 to 7 years, I can't think of a better time to go ahead and make that investment. We have, as you know, the interest rates are just phenomenal. We're not going to see these interest rates, in my guess, for many, many years to come. But again, it's a guess.
Well, we had a little jump in interest rates right after the fiscal cliff thing happened. I think rates went up about a quarter of a point.
Yeah, but traditionally that's nothing. I mean, compared to 6 or 7.
And when I first met you, I was in 1999, 2000, and I had my interest rates in my window, and I want to say we were at like 7.5 at the time.
Right. It's just a phenomenal time to buy. And as you were mentioning, the mid-cities area, the proximity to the cities is really a really good.
It's a good place to live. It really is, as far as being centrally located and things like that. But, Mike, one of the things that I wanted to talk about as far as buying, okay, so I'm a buyer out there. I'm thinking about buying a house. And there's a lot of apps for the iPhone that you can download. Like you shared this with me, Realtor.com, which is pretty cool. There's another one called Redfin that my brother-in-law told me about. As you're out driving around and looking for homes, you can it'll indicate where you're at, and you pull up in front of the house and you kind of click on it, and you can see everything about the house. So technology's really taken off as far as the buyers go. And I believe like 90% of the people who are getting ready to buy a house, first thing they do is go to the internet. You can't place an offer over the internet to that that person. You may call the realtor that's listing the house that's on that thing. But I think one of the things that I've always lived by is that if you're dealing with the person that's listing the house, what's the ethics behind that? Are they representing me? They're representing the seller? I mean, or am I better off just getting my own agent and that's representing just me and negotiating for that price, on that purchase once we find a house on my behalf? What's your thoughts there?
Well, my thoughts on it is I'm not a big proponent of dual agency. I don't think that the selling agent should be representing the buyer's agent. I just think there's too much of a conflict of interest. There's too many good agents out there that would be able to really fully advise you and be your confidant and what purchase you're making.
Be kind of like having an attorney that was representing the plaintiff and the defendant at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So, for your listeners, again, I would highly recommend have your own agent. Stick with your agent.
Is there a different agreement with your agent if it's a buying agent? I mean,
there is. He's known as the buyer's agent. You have also the seller's agent, but then also in the state of Texas, you can have the intermediary relationship, which is both the buyer and the seller. And I would suggest that you find a good buyer's agent.
But wasn't it always the ethics of a realtor when they're listing the house, or it used to be? I think that if you were even if you were the buyer's agent, your job was to represent or get the best price you could for the seller. I think that used to be the deal. Now they came out with buyer's agents that can truly negotiate for the best deal from the buyer's standpoint. Am I right?
Yes, yeah, you are. It used to be that the seller's agent represented solely the seller, and really had no.
It was like an ethical thing that if you were representing the buyer, you were still supposed to try to get top dollar for the seller.
Right. And the buyer's agent, of course, is going to try to get the bottom dollar for the seller. And that's what I would highly recommend, that you stick with a good buyer's agent.
Okay. So I'm looking for a house. I'm doing some research. What do I do? If I find some houses, I just call you up and say, okay, I found these 4 houses. What do you think? Okay. And then you can run the numbers for me, and then you set up the visits to go visit those houses, right?
Well, step by step, what I would recommend is we have the internet. We have you as a buyer know approximately where you want to be. So you go in and you get on the internet, go take a look at all the different properties. Take a look, see if you see some houses that you really like. Go drive out them. But as you were mentioning earlier, now with the iPod and the iPhone and the iPad and the Android, the applications out there such as Redfin, and then Realtor.com has really done a really good job, and then also Trulia. If you download those apps and say that you're driving around, you want to go look at one of these homes you saw on the internet. If you're driving through a neighborhood and you see that, hey, this is a cul-de-sac location right here, and you like, this is a neat little subdivision close to a park or whatever, you download that location onto your iPad, and all the available houses come up that are available in that area, as well as the prices, so you can tell whether or not you're in your price range. So one of the first things I tell my buyers to do is go drive some neighborhoods, go get an idea. If you're going to be in the 200, 300 range, go around, find some areas that you like and make sure it's in your price range. And then what I like them to do is then we set up for 10, 15 properties to take a look at each and every one. Now, where a good buyer's agent comes into play is that once you start to narrow down your search and you have a difference between 2 or 3 houses, then we're able to take, again, the statistical analysis, find out what the fair market value of that property is. Now, the seller already knows what their fair market value is, but the buyer's agent's going to try his best to get you the very best deal, bring the price down, ask for repairs, just really represent you and represent you fully.
We've got to go to break, but if you're listening out there, text the show, 817-925-2546, 817-925-2546. Just text by and we'll hook you up with Mike. There's more to come. You're listening to Real Talk Texas on KLIF News and Information.
Hi,